Welcome to Boxing Scene Today. I'm Ricardo Celis here in the studio with the Magic Man, Paulie Malignaggi. We got via Zoom the champ, Chris Algieri, and the trainer of the year, Robert Garcia. Gentlemen, after so many boxers tested positive with Eddy Reynoso, now the Mexican trainer mentioned in an interview with ESPN Knockout that he's only going to train boxers that he can control everything in the process of training, his nutrition, the training, and everything with Eddy Reynoso. What do you think about that, Paulie?
I mean, I think it's something he has to say. I think, hopefully he's serious about it and, things can move on in a more positive light. Obviously, anytime so many of the fighters from one camp start to test positive, there's going to be talking points, discussions. I think most guys at the highest level in boxing, unfortunately, are doping. But yeah, the ones that are failing happen to be all in his camp recently. So of course it's going to be more under the microscope. I don't know if what he's saying is actually going to happen, but I think he has to give a little bit of pushback. And who knows? Maybe it's not him at all. Maybe it's some of these guys that are in that camp that end up getting caught. I don't know if he's directly involved with that or not. Sometimes you might be, you might not be. Fighters have sometimes go off on their own nutrition and do their own, strength work and nutrition and whatnot with other people. I don't really know which way to put it. But obviously, from the outside looking in a conversational topic, yeah, of course, you're going to wind up a little bit under the microscope. You're a big name trainer, and of course, you're a discussing point when things go good, but also if things go bad, it also becomes a talking point because you're a big name trainer.
Especially Chris, because like Jaime Munguia, during his career, he never tested positive. On his first fight with Eddy Reynoso, he tested positive.
Yeah, no, listen, everything the champ said is absolutely right. I agree with you. It's going to put a lot of eyes on you. You're under the microscope now. I think it's 6 or 7 fighters, all from that camp, have tested positive. But in defense of Eddy Reynoso, a lot of fighters bring in other team members that aren't necessarily directly involved with the head trainer. Eddy has a camp, sure, and a lot of camps, and Robert, I can attest to this from being in your camp, where you worked very, very closely with the strength coaches, but the guys aren't always like that, and guys will bring in their own guys. They'll have their own nutritionists. We're also talking about high-level fighters, guys who can afford these kind of things. These aren't run-of-the-mill contenders who are stuck in a group training situation at Eddy's. These are individual guys who can afford nutritionists, strength coaches, weight-making specialists, all these different things, and bringing people in. And I like what Eddy's saying, and I think it makes a lot of sense. He goes, I need to be able to work with guys that I can control all of the aspects of their training, so I know what's coming in and what's going out. And yeah, it's a little bit of a politically motivated speech, but it also makes a lot of sense from a systems approach. He's got to systemize this so these kind of things don't happen. And another reason that another defense of Eddy and his team is everybody failed for different things. So that to me, that made me think. I'm like, these are all different drugs. If it was like everybody's failing for clenbuterol, and somebody gets off because it's tainted meat, and then they have a meat sponsor, whatever. Like, okay, there's our culprit. But you got guys failing for steroids, for anabolics, for energy giving. Anabolics, testosterone. Valdez failed for a stimulant, which can help you make weight. Another making a weight making thing, a clomiphene, which is an estrogen blocker and testosterone booster. So all of these different kinds of drugs have shown up in these fighters' systems. So it makes you kind of think like, all right, well, if it was all one thing, okay, I can blame the team. It's something's going on in the team. But with all different kinds of drugs, if there's not a unifying character or person prescribing said supplements, it's weird. It's a very strange situation. But I think Eddy's making the right move and saying like, all right, I got to control this stuff. But listen, that's a dangerous thing to say. Anybody pops now, it's really going to fall on you.
Yeah.
So, you got to be careful saying these things. Yeah, this is a good thing. It sounds good as long as everything's on the up and up. If another one of these guys goes off the prairie and pops, your whole reputation is going to go.
Coach, what do you think about what Eddy Reynoso mentioned to ESPN Knockout, that now he's going to be working only with boxers that he can control everything on their training?
I think that's the best thing he should have done five fighters ago. If it's already the 6th or 7th, it's too many already. 1 or 2, you understand, okay, maybe you made the mistake, allowed people to come into camp that shouldn't be in camp. That's why you have to be in control. I'm in control of my camp. Most of my fighters, I would say 90% of my fighters that come to my gym are under my guidance. Everything is run by me, my conditioning coach, my nutritionist, everything is by me, my team. I do have a couple that bring their own, but I'm talking to them every day. I'm talking to them, I see they're in the gym every day. I talk to them. They explain to me everything that's going on. They explain to me everything that my fighters are taking, because I ain't gonna be blamed for that. I know how this is, and I know how boxing is. One mistake and they'll take me down. There is others, because of the power of Canelo, that you you get excused for everything because of the power Canelo has. It's so easy to say, okay, we're not gonna. If there's reporters that want to start talking bad about Canelo's team and Eddy Reynoso, then they just don't give them interviews. That's why nobody talks bad about them. Nobody's gonna bring it up. It's already 6 or 7. Come on, imagine if that was me, 6 or 7 guys. Nobody, you know what I mean? I would be done.
You'll be crucified already.
I would be done.
Robert,
I just have more control.
Yeah, I can speak to it firsthand. I've seen Robert's facility, but that's another reason. Like, people ask me, as a nutritionist, I used to work with fighters. Guys ask me all the time, why don't I do that anymore? Well, because I become a scapegoat. If you fail because you're taking something I didn't prescribe or tell you to do, it's like, oh, I got this nutritionist. I got Chris Algieri. It's one of the major reasons I don't do this anymore.
That's what Ryan Garcia tried to do to Scooter Honig, right? It's like he just tried to scapegoat the poor guy. He didn't even work with him. He just helped him make weight the night before.
He brought him in to make weight, and then he pops, and now it's this guy. It's very easy for these guys to throw outside influences under the bus, and you got to protect yourself as a coach, like you said, Robert, as a nutritionist myself, and even Eddie with what he's saying now. He's got to be really careful with these guys moving forward.
Yeah, especially because so many fighters under his supervision, Eddy Reynoso supervision. It was Canelo Álvarez, Julio César El Rey Martínez, Oscar Valdez, Jaime Munguia, and the latest one was Francisco Chigua Rodriguez. When Chigua Rodriguez tested positive, Paulie, Oscar de la Hoya and a lot of boxers, they were asking for the commissions, the organizations, to investigate all this.
Yeah. I mean, it's the natural thing to discuss. It's the mystery of the whole thing. It's bad ethics. And of course, people are going to talk about it. Again, I'll reiterate what I said before. When you're a big name player in the business, in the sport, either as a trainer or as a fighter, you're under a microscope. When things are good, they're going to be extra good, because, you're already under the microscope. So more people are going to talk about it because more people know you. So when things are going good, more people know they're going good. But when things go bad, it's going to be extra bad because, again, more people know you. So there's more opinions, more discussions. And right now, that's what's happening, because of all these fighters popping in the same camp. Eddy Reynoso is a big name trainer. He's a conversation point within the sport. He's a conversation point within the business, within boxing. Now people, of course, you become a talking point. If Eddy Reynoso wasn't such a big deal in the business, okay, yeah, it's whatever, we talk about it and then, you kind of forget about it because it wouldn't really matter. Because you matter, because you've got this position and he's earned this position, you got to give him credit. But you got to take the good with the bad now. There's always going to be opinion. Once you're a big name, opinions are going to fly like left and right, and crazy, So when something bad happens, it's going to be extra bad. When something good happens, it's going to be extra good. So you got to be able to roll with the punches. He's trying to roll with the punches by saying he's going to be more hands-on. Coach Garcia made a great point. He's very hands-on. I think it's very important now, but also as Champ Algieri said, if you put yourself out there and say this, now you got to be extra careful if guys popping,
right? Because
now you actually put yourself on the chopping block by saying, I'm going to make sure everybody's how things are being run. Things are being run my way. Okay, you didn't have to say that. If that's your response, now you've got to be extra careful. That's all.
But Chris, especially if we were in the NFL, one of the teams tested so many of these players positive, the NFL will take a look at that team. Why the organizations are not looking into Eddy Reynoso camp?
Well, Ricky, I can take that a lot of ways. We are certainly not the NFL. Boxing is the wild, wild west, and there's no oversight. There's no commission that's looking at, no overall governing body who really has any kind of power. And the real problem is nobody has any teeth. There's no teeth in any of these observing organizations. Even with VADA, it's brought in. It's an outside source. It's easy to get around. It doesn't deter people. Obviously, we're seeing more and more of these fighters pop. I mean, it's nothing new either. Fighters have been popping for decades, and there's a ton of guys that get away with it today. There's a ton of guys that have been getting away with it for decades. Like I said,
sometimes they pop and get away with with it. They still get away with it even after they pop sometimes.
Oh, well, that's another thing. It gets swept under the rug. So sometimes there are guys, listen, I'll tell you this firsthand. I know some knowledge about guys who pop that we never hear about.
Yeah.
They just gets right under the rug. Never even came out. Never even came out. Don't worry about it. And some of the biggest names in our sport, guys that you know that we hear about. And then we got guys like Canelo who actually do pop and then barely get a slap on the wrist and go back, and it's completely forgotten. This is a major issue in our sport, and I don't see. Go ahead, champ.
No, they all wind up as first ballot Hall of Famers, mind you. There's no punishment either, even post career. In baseball, you got guys that are still on the Hall of Fame from that generation. Yeah. In boxing, it's like not only is it a slap on the wrist, is nobody even blinks.
Nothing happens.
No, it ultimately helps you. These guys are getting a leg up, and there's no asterisk, there's no question about it. There's no mark in BoxRec to say anything about it. It is what it is. It's unfortunate, but that's what boxing is. It's the wild, wild west. We ain't the NFL, we ain't the NBA, we ain't the MLB, we ain't Major League Soccer. We are boxing, and we are a fragmented, backward run industry. It's very unfortunate.
But Robert, especially for Mexican boxers, this looks really bad for Mexican boxers, because all these boxers from the Eddy Reynoso camp, they're all Mexicans.
Yeah, but it looks bad depending on which team you're in. Honestly, but let's be real. That fighters are testing positive in that team, and they always get excused. Other teams would have never been excused. They would bury them. But it is what it is. I'm in charge of my team. I am the one that runs everything. I know who they're working with. If they bring somebody in, I talk to that person. I'm in charge of everything that happens in my team. That's why my fighters are, have never tested positive. Years ago, I think Brandon Rios tested positive for making weight. But the person that was working with him, I'm not going to say his name, but the person that got fired after that, never worked again with us. And since then, nobody has ever tested. Because why? Because I'm in charge of my team. Carlos Tremblay, my doctor, is the one in charge of everything. And he works with all of my fighters. Simple as that. Or make them from the beginning. Make them from the amateurs to the pros. They're going to be under your guidance. They're going to do exactly what you tell them to do. That's the easiest way to go.
Coach, can Eddy Reynoso do that? I know he says he wants to do that, have that hands-on approach like you. You mentioned how with Rios' team, right away you eliminated that problem. Me and my friends used to call that, you got the Scud missile. You light up and you get set for launch. He got fired. he launched them out of the atmosphere. Does Reynoso have that kind of power? Because like you said, he's got a lot of big name fighters. A lot of times you guys are bringing in their own team and whatnot. Can Reynoso fulfill that kind of power and say, listen, you're going to do this my way with my guys, or if it's your guys, I got to be very hands-on. Does he have that? Can he make that change in his camp at this point, or will his guys maybe leave him?
I think he should. If they leave, so what? That's the way he should see it. He already has Canelo. Canelo's not going to leave him. Eddy Reynoso doesn't have to train nobody else but Canelo. He makes so much money off Canelo that he doesn't need to train nobody else. He makes a really good living off Canelo. He doesn't need to train anybody else. So he doesn't need those headaches, I'm bringing this conditioning guy. I'm bringing this nutritionist. This guy's my new whatever, Don't allow it. That's what he should do. Just don't allow it. Have his team. And if you want to work with me, this is my team. And that's the way it is. You don't bring nobody else.
I think that's a great decision by Eddy Reynoso, now controlling or training boxers that he can control everything under training. Paulie Malignaggi, thank you very much. To Chris Algieri, to Robert Garcia, I'm Ricardo Celis. Thank you for watching Boxing Scene Today.